No one really dies of old age. Well, that's according to statistics and according to what doctors put down on the Declaration of Life Extinction. I've yet to see a doctor write down, this patient died of old age. I've yet to see it. It's always something like, this patient died of stroke, ischemic heart disease, renal failure, respiratory failure, cancer, Alzheimer's disease. It's always something like that. There's always a cause of death. It was as if death just happens, like in an instant, These events happen. This person has cerebral vascular accident, and that's caused their death. No one really talks about old age. No one really talks about the person passed away because of old age. These are the things that happen. Many things happen in the body as you age. Did you know that your heart rate, your maximum capacity for your heart rate goes down 1 beat every single year? And it's a very consistent rate. So say, for example, your maximum heart rate during exertion right now is 220 beats. By next year, it's going to be 219, 218. When you're pushing hard, when you're exercising, this is the maximum heart rate that your heart can tolerate. And then it goes down at a consistent rate of 1 beat per year. Eventually, your heart cannot handle such heavy loads anymore. And you'll be forced to, take it easy. And not even your heart, your vessels, everything in the body changes as you age. Your blood vessels lose their elasticity. There's a layer of fat and calcium deposit in your vessel that makes it rigid. And it's just not responsive to the sudden changes in activity and blood and oxygen requirements. It's not going to be able to cope with that, and over time it will become less effective for your heart to pump blood. When I asked my family about my grandfather's death, most would say he died of a stroke. But I could see this coming years ago. I could see this. I see my grandfather becoming more slow. He once used to be the patriarch of this family. Now, over the past couple of months, he has become almost childlike and meek. He used to be really stern and really particular with us kids. Stern but loving. And he would tell each one of us, you got to do this, you got to go to uni, you got to, make your family proud in Australia, you got to do this, do that. When are you getting married? But over the couple of years recently, he has lost all of that. And he used to be a professor. And he's well respected within his field of forestry. He knows a lot about trees. I remember once he asked me to type up some documents for him on the computer. By then he was getting more slow. He still reads well into his 80s. He still reads. He still goes to meetings. He's still publishing. And I remember about 5 years ago, he asked me to type some documents. Maybe it was a compilation of all of his work. I couldn't understand any of it. I was editing the documents, and he actually published a book. So I could see this gradual decline from someone who used to be an academic, and now he's relying on the family to feed him, to bathe him. I mean, I didn't have anything to do with it, but I can see my uncles and aunties becoming more occupied with my grandfather. I could see this years ago. So it was not an event that happened and then that caused my grandfather's death. It's a natural process. It happens because we age. But when you ask somebody about my grandfather's death, someone in my family, they would say he died of a stroke. I asked my mom about it. She was still in disbelief and denial. She thought we could save him. We could have, the nurses and doctors, they could have done this. They could have taken him to the ICU and do all of these invasive treatments in order to prolong his life. And I see this so frequently in my practice as well. Loved ones don't want to see a person die. Dying with dignity has become the gold standard in practice for caring after someone who is terminally ill. What it means by dying with dignity is that the person dies in a mystical way. We want to hide the fact that they are dying to their loved ones and to everybody else as well. Loved ones of someone who's dying don't want to see the person no longer being able to clear their secretions properly. They don't want to hear the death rattle, the gurgling, the choking on their own secretions, even though it's a completely natural thing for a dying body to do. They don't want to see their loved one suffering, writhing in pain. Some of them don't want them to perceive the world anymore. That's why we opt for a lot of painkillers and sedatives, so that the person can no longer perceive the fact that they are transitioning from life to death. They don't want to perceive that, even though it's a normal process. Now, there's a lot of suffering in the world. I have no doubt about it. But I think a cause of suffering in the world is denial. We don't want to accept the fact that we cannot live forever. We can't. And you cannot stay at a stage in life forever. Eventually, you will have to transition to the next stage in your life. Whatever that might mean, it might mean for a senior to transition from life to death. And ever since the dawn of mankind, even though we don't have the full medical knowledge, well, I don't think we will ever have the full medical knowledge, period. But even though we don't have the knowledge that we have now, we know that what we got to do is to keep it going. So once a person dies, the children will keep it going. They'll keep making babies. They'll keep regenerating. It's the same inside our body at a cellular level. When a cell dies, when a cell becomes malformed, they cannot carry out their function as efficiently anymore, the cell gets destroyed, or the cell self-destroys, so that it makes room for the new healthy cells to take up the task at hand, the task that was left behind. And don't you want your children to carry on for you, Don't you want to go to that next stage in life? Well, regardless of whether you want to do that or not, you will have to eventually. I know that this body will fail me eventually, and I know that whatever task that I left behind will be left behind for my grandchildren to take up. And I don't know. To me, I would feel at peace. To me, I would feel like that's the way to go, man. You got to move on. I see a lot of people trying to prolong this life, even though they know that the inevitable will happen and they cannot, avoid it. You see people getting all of these body modifications in order to stay young forever. They think that it's gonna improve the quality of life. But I don't know, man. You cannot deny the inevitable that's gonna happen. You cannot stay young forever. You cannot just take these compounds and, maintain your muscle mass and your strength forever. You can't. You have to move on, dude. You can't stay young forever. You can't live forever. And it's okay. At the last moments of your life, you're not going to be thinking about, I could have done this, I could have done that. When my grandparents passed away, even though I was not there personally, I heard that my grandparents were really at peace, being surrounded by family. They're well looked after. Very well looked after. Very well loved by our family. And that's the main thing. That's the main thing. It's not about the accomplishments, the things you could have done, But anyways, that's enough rambling. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm going to go to my night shift now, so I'll speak to you later.